Hey, Ag Teacher Thoughts here coming at you with another video. Today we're going to take a little bit of a step aside from our normal topics and we're going to talk about public speaking. Now, as an ag teacher, this is something that we do on a regular basis here in our classroom. Yes, we do public speaking every day in our agriculture classes. Now, this is for many reasons, but the main one we're going to talk about is the FFA has competitions for public speaking for our students. Now, those can come in many different forms. It can come from the FFA Creed, which every FFA member learns. It can come from advanced prepared public speaking, where students write and then recite a speech to an audience and a set of judges. It can even come in the form of parliamentary procedure debates, or as simple as maybe an ag sales competition, or even talking in front of your own chapter during a regular FFA meeting. So today we're going to talk a little bit about my experience and some of the knowledge I've gained in public speaking from the 8 years I've been an ag teacher and from the many years that I was actually a professional minister. Yes, I was a minister before I was a teacher, and during that, as you might associate ministers or preachers, I preached from a pulpit. So I have a long storied history of public speaking. But it doesn't start with my time as a preacher. It actually starts long before that, when I was sitting in a seat in a classroom just like this. And my ag teacher looked at me and said, "Matt, I think you need to do public speaking for me." And so I did. I started on the journey. I started off with Creed. I went to sophomore prepared public speaking. And then as a junior and a senior, I entered into our advanced prepared public speaking. And I wrote speeches that got me through the chapter, through the district competition. And in our state, we had sectionals, sub-state, and then state. And by the time I was a senior, I made it all the way from the chapter up to the stage in the top 4 public speakers in our state. Now, unfortunately, I made a judge uncomfortable. And because of my introduction, I was shifted down to 4th place. But that doesn't mean that my journey of public speaking ended there. In fact, it actually ignited a real passion for public speaking and got me to think a little bit more about how I speak to the public and how I talk when I speak with others. So what was that introduction that took me from 1st to 4th? At least in one judge's mind. Now, I will tell you, I was told by my ag teacher that many years ago, he told me that it was actually just one judge that had it out for me. The rest had actually placed me in the number 1 spot. So I was this close to actually advancing to nationals. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but that doesn't mean I left FFA altogether. So here, let me give you my best recollection of what that speech was. Now, I haven't given it for 30 years, so I'm going off of the vague memories, and I've written it behind me. So if you see me glancing back there, yeah, I'm using notes, but it'll give you an idea of what that speech was like, and I'll do my best to play it back for you. It's early in the morning when you find yourself wandering around a large wooden building. You enter a doorway to a room lit by a single shaft of light from a window far above. The air in the room hangs heavy with the buzz of flies and the stench of rotting flesh. 10 feet from you in the center of the room sits a large bin overflowing with the dismembered remains of animals still dripping in blood. Small, furry shapes dart across the pile, and the noise of gnawing and clawing begins to drown out the sound of the flies. From a shadowy corner emerges a figure wearing a blood-stained leather apron. In his hand, he holds a large, rusty cleaver. And in one swift motion, he grabs a handful of flesh, tosses it on a cutting board, and whacks it into pieces with a reverberating sound of his cleaver. This story is not far removed from the scenes that played out in Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, which portrayed the corruption and complete lack of hygiene in the meatpacking plants of Chicago in 1904. Unfortunately, opponents of animal agriculture still use this imagery today when they attack modern meat processing plants. So this is very much how my introduction to my public speech went, my advanced prepared public speech went. It was full of imagery, of sounds, of smells, of noises, and just visceral reactions. I was told by my advisor that there were some members of my audience that felt ill after hearing what I had to say. But it was this idea to draw in my audience and get them to understand what I was saying and experience what I was saying that allowed me to climb the ranks of public speaking within my state. So when you hear a presentation like this, I, as the public speaker, am trying to connect with you on certain levels and elicit a response that's one that I would like to have you have. I want you to feel disgusted at the smells and the sounds and the sights that happen in that speech. I want you to react and have a passion. I almost want you to be angry or shocked. Because it's after that point that I'm then going to guide you through a story and show you that this scene that you saw in your mind as you first heard me talk is completely separated from the white stainless steel bleach smells of a modern packing plant. And it's, as a public speaker, learning how to connect those things with my audience that really makes them buy in. And what we're going to cover in this series that can really help you be a really effective public speaker. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about movement across your stage, movement so that your audience doesn't get bored with what you're saying. How do you do gestures? How do you talk with your hands to make sure that your audience doesn't fall asleep, that they understand that you're talking about this thing and that thing, that things can be good and things can be bad, and that it can be for an entire audience. So we'll talk about those gestures. Then we'll talk about eye contact and how when you look at your audience, it's your eyes that tell them and make that connection. Because we are beings based on sight. We'll also talk about inflection and how you say something that makes a very important point. Whether you talk about something that's good and happy and perfect, or something that just makes you viscerally angry. We'll talk about those inflections and how you say something is more important than what you might actually say. So if this is something that you think is going to be helpful to you as a student or as a general public speaker anywhere, any setting, then subscribe, follow along, and follow this playlist. Because I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tricks that I've polished over the last 30 years of public speaking that can help you rise from the lower level of your chapter up to a state or national level, or from the roles of an employee all the way to someone in leadership or management. And you're learning something. Subscribe. This has been Ag Teacher's Thoughts. I hope you learned something. I'm out.